Okay. Thank you and good afternoon. I'm New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, and it's a pleasure to be here today with such a good collection of my colleagues in government and law enforcement. And we're here to announce the results of Operation Bricktown, a major takedown of gang members and violent drug dealers operating out of the south side of Syracuse. As I say, I'm with a lot of good colleagues in law enforcement. This was very much a collaborative effort. It's a pleasure to be here with Mayor Stephanie A, who we've worked with on so many initiatives, and look forward to further good work in law enforcement in other areas. We have with us also Syracuse First Deputy Police Chief Joe Cecil, our longtime partner in these efforts, Major David Krause of the New York State Police, and I note that Major Krause has brought Ray, the state police dog, who is also integral to this investigation. U.S. Marshal David McNulty, another great partner here from the National Guard, Technical Sergeant Paula Carroll and Sergeant Corey White. And we also have representatives, I believe, with us today from the Onondaga County Sheriff's Office, FBI, and the Office of District Attorney Fitzpatrick. And then finally, my own team, we're here with Perry Kadenoff, who runs our Organized Crime Task Force, several of our other investigators and attorneys, and particularly I want to note Jeff Sirak, the Assistant Deputy Attorney General, who is taking the lead on the prosecution of this extremely complex case. We are here today to announce the indictments of more than 50 people for their alleged roles in a widespread heroin and cocaine ring that supplied drugs to much of the Syracuse region and multiple conspiracies to commit murder. Following a year-long investigation in partnership with the Syracuse Police Department and our other colleagues, we have charged 49 people in one 368-count indictment for allegedly selling deadly drugs throughout the region. This indictment also includes charges of conspiracy to commit murder against 5 of the defendants. And you can see the two different crews, all parts of the Bricktown Gang, and the green arrows indicate those charged in the first conspiracy to commit murder. In a separate indictment, we've also indicted 4 other people for an alleged conspiracy to commit murder after investigators overheard their plans to shoot rival gang members. In fact, during the course of our investigation, these defendants in the second conspiracy allegedly threw loaded guns out of the window of a moving car during a police pursuit. Those 4 defendants in the second murder conspiracy are the ones down on the right, and that's charged in a separate indictment. But many of the folks that are being charged today, almost all of whom have been apprehended, were allegedly members of the notorious Bricktown Gang, and they have terrorized the south side of Syracuse for more than a decade. Today, we take a big bite out of that sort of terrorist activity. The gang is known for its vicious tactics, and Syracuse police have tracked many shots-fired incidents back to this gang's turf. Investigators, as you can see here, also recovered a wide array of drugs and guns in the course of the Operation Bricktown investigation, including more than 2 kilograms of cocaine, more than 1,100 ready-to-sell envelopes of heroin, which you can see here, over 20 grams of loose heroin, a .40 caliber Glock handgun with a fully loaded 30-round magazine, a loaded 9mm Sig Sauer handgun, a loaded .45 caliber Taurus handgun, a 12-gauge shotgun, drug paraphernalia including scales, packaging, and cutting agents, a cocaine press, and other drugs, ecstasy pills, psychedelic mushrooms, and thousands of dollars in cash. We also recovered a loaded 9mm Lorson handgun with the serial number obliterated. This gun, the single gun, has been tracked back to 13 different shots-fired incidents over the last 2 years by law enforcement here in Syracuse. 13 shots-fired incidents from one single gun, and that gun has its serial number obliterated. 2 of the alleged dealers and leaders of this ring are being charged as major traffickers under a law that I sponsored when I was still in the state Senate. If convicted, they could both face life in prison. They're both identified at the top right of the chart. And as a part of this operation, as I noted before, our investigators also uncovered 2 separate plans to allegedly kill rival gang members. First, in May 2016, investigators heard several Bricktown gang members allegedly discussing plans to shoot some of their rivals. One Bricktown defendant was allegedly recorded saying, quote, "It's wartime," as they gathered for the planned attack. Those are the folks designated by the green tags. As outlined in the second indictment, in November 2016, investigators also overheard a separate and unrelated series of phone calls where 4 defendants in another gang were allegedly planning a different murder. One of these defendants allegedly told an acquaintance he was, quote, "trying to rock somebody's power out." These arrests today send an unmistakable message. Dealing death and violence in our communities is unacceptable. And that is why, in addition to these indictments, I'm proud to announce the Surge initiative today, which is an initiative to build on our collaboration with state and local law enforcement to root out particularly violent gangs and drug dealers. The Surge initiative, which stands for Suburban and Upstate Response to the Growing Epidemic, is going to focus on communities that have been hardest hit by the opioid crisis. We're going to have enhanced communication, coordination, and targeting because the numbers are stark. We have a recent report from the Rockefeller Institute of Government that tells us that drug-related deaths in Onondaga County were up 145% between 2010 and 2015. The problem is felt in areas all across the state. The rate of drug-related deaths is rising about twice as fast in the suburbs and smaller cities, and even some rural areas than in New York City, which is a change in pattern. In Westchester, the rate of drug-related deaths increased 122% between 2010 and 2015. In Erie County, during the same time period, drug-related deaths exploded by 256%. And we will not allow our communities to be ripped apart by this crisis and the violence that comes with it. So the Surge initiative is going to build on the work we're already doing and the good work our Organized Crime Task Force has done to collaborate with our colleagues in law enforcement to create an even more effective strategy and target the hardest hit communities. The work we've done in Operation Bricktown is an excellent model for the collaborations and partnerships that we are going to utilize to deal with this epidemic and to target more carefully our use of resources. Our office worked shoulder to shoulder with the Syracuse Police Department on this case from the start. I want to thank the mayor and the police here for their leadership and as well as the good work and the leadership of all of the other agencies that are represented here today. We could not do a case this large and complicated, ladies and gentlemen, without the cooperation of all of our colleagues in law enforcement. These are the kinds of cases that make a difference in people's lives. This is the kind of case that changes the sense of violence in a community, and I thank everyone for their work. I also want to make it clear that everyone indicted today is charged with serious crimes. We do not target people who are simply struggling with addiction. We have partnered with other government agencies and advocates across the state and have taken an all-levers approach to the fight against the opioid crisis, which includes enforcement, which is critical, but also treatment, interdiction, as well as education. This approach is essential and it is urgent. All told, in the past 5 years, our Organized Crime Task Force has now busted more than 30 large narcotics trafficking gangs, made more than 700 felony narcotics arrests, seized millions in cash, more than a ton of illegal drugs, and hundreds of firearms. That includes last summer's Operation Smackdown, one of the biggest drug busts in Syracuse history. Together, today's Operation Bricktown and Operation Smackdown have taken more than 120 violent drug dealers off the streets of Syracuse. These investigations will make a significant dent in the violent gangs that plague the city, and they demonstrate our commitment to working together with our colleagues to tackle this crisis with the full knowledge that we can't arrest and prosecute our way out of an opioid epidemic. That's why our office has worked hard to create a multi-layered response. We've worked to train and supply New York law enforcement officials with the overdose antidote naloxone, turning more than $5 million in forfeited funds into more than 50,000 naloxone kits statewide. We've also worked with the manufacturers of these drugs to ensure that first responders can have the antidote available at an affordable price. And we also recognize that opioid addiction often starts in the medicine cabinet, which is why our office introduced and happily was passed into law the iStop system, the internet system for stopping overprescribing, which went into effect a few years ago, arming doctors and pharmacists with the information they need to avoid overprescribing painkillers to those who are abusing drugs while ensuring that patients who truly need the medications get them. The State Department of Health says that doctor shopping in New York dropped 75% in the first year of the program. So we're taking a multi-layered approach to this, a multi-leveled approach, but we recognize that when you're dealing with gangs, as alleged in our indictment, with the level of violence that we saw in this particular investigation, these arrests, along with coordinated efforts of the Surge Initiative, mark a very important step towards curbing the crisis once and for all. I'm proud to work with our colleagues in law enforcement. We were targeting the most violent gangs, the community's hardest hit, the worst of the drug dealers, and this targeted effort, enhanced coordination, should serve us well. So I thank you for joining us here today, and thank you all for your excellent work. I would now like to introduce a great partner in this and many other investigations and initiatives, Mayor Stephanie A.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you very much. Thank you. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Attorney General and his team, as well as the rest of the law enforcement partners who we were able to work with. It is because of focused resources and responses that we can fight the scourge that violence and drug dealing has brought to our city and to other places. But make no mistake about it, we can only do that through the partnership of many different entities and agencies so that we can ensure that the people of our community live in safe and secure environments. And because of the work of the Attorney General's office, as well as the marshals, as well as the sheriffs, as well as the many dozens of police agencies, we were able to stand here today and announce that. I want to take a particular moment here and just thank the men and women of the Syracuse Police Department for the long hours that they put into this investigation and the execution of the warrants necessary to allow us to be here today. This is just a first step on making sure that these people stay off the streets. But it is an important step nevertheless, and it is one that will result in the people of our city being able to rest easier at night because these people are off the street. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Honor. And with that, if you'll identify yourself, members of the press, to Amy, we'll take on-topic questions.
I'm Andrew Donovan from News Channel 9 here in Syracuse. What's it like to arrest that many people? Bust down a door and see 50 people in a room? Do you have to do arrests at the same time in different locations? Take us through the work, that moment when you finally get that many people.
Well, it takes place in many locations over a period of a couple of days, but obviously once you start the process, you want to move very quickly. So Perry and her team, in coordination with our colleagues in law enforcement, prepared for this, and starting 2 days ago?
About a day and a half.
A day and a half ago, started picking people up. I believe we have 50 of the 52 now in custody. So it's just a matter of continuing the surveillance that led to these indictments in the first place, knowing where people are and moving as quickly as you can. This was a very complicated investigation. It obviously involves dozens and dozens of people who are moving drugs in different directions. It's really a tribute to the close level of collaboration, the excellent work of the whole team, that they were able to gather all this information without the investigation getting blown in the first place, and the allegations in the indictment speak for themselves. This is allegedly a very serious drug dealing and a very violent operation, as alleged in both of the indictments.
Do you have any sense of what percentage of the drug trade in Central New York they are responsible for this gang? Is it a lot? I mean, can you generalize?
It's very hard to make that sort of a generalization. We know that between this takedown and the one last summer, we have made a serious dent in the most the gangs we allege to be the most serious and most violent drug dealing gangs in Syracuse. This should have an impact not just on drugs, the availability of drugs, but on the level of violence. That's something that should be actually noticeable, which is very gratifying, because these are hard gangs to bust up.
Other on-topic questions?
You mentioned the weapon with the serial number that was obliterated on it. Talk about the getting something like that weapon off the street. You mentioned it's been possibly used in many different shots fired. Sure.
I mean, this is a Lorson. It was had the serial number obliterated. Some of these guns are sometimes used as communal guns, passed around. We allege in the indictment that obviously this was a violent gang, as evidenced by the fact that we have 2 separate conspiracies to commit murder. But having a gun with 13 shots fired incidents traced to it over just a 2-year period tells you a lot about the use of this gun and the level of violence. This is something that we're very glad to have this weapon off the street and all of these weapons off the street. Oh, the having a weapon that has 13 different incidents of shots fired traced back to it indicates that this is probably a communal weapon. It may be passed around. It's good to have a weapon like that off the street. When you find a gun that's in use that much with the serial number obliterated, there's no possible legitimate use for that. This is the kind of thing that indicates the level of violence we allege in the indictment.
When you bust an operation that big, does it give you insight to things that these groups are doing that you might have not known before, and you can therefore go after more people in the future?
We learn something. Any investigation this serious, we learn something. Well, and you can see here that while monitoring the Bricktown gang, these 4 people over here who are in a separate indictment for murder aren't even a part of the Bricktown gang. So we overheard their conversations and stumbled into something else. So the intelligence we gather with each investigation adds to our cumulative intelligence and enables us to do a better job. And we have had, we've really had good success in this area in particular. And I want to thank everyone here for it. And our commitment remains strong, and we're going to keep at this. And the Surge Initiative is an effort to take this sort of success, build on it, again, using the new data we have about the communities that are hardest hit, and going after the areas where there's the worst problems of opioid abuse and of violence.
With summer concert season coming up, your office last year was instrumental in making it illegal for tickets to be purchased by robots or response computer systems. What can folks look forward to this upcoming season? Is it going to be easier to buy a ticket that's not astronomical now?
Well, last year, our office issued the most detailed report on tickets and why it's hard to get tickets in many, many years in New York, called Obstructed View, what's blocking New Yorkers from getting tickets. And in response to that, we were able to pass through the legislature a law criminalizing the use of bots, these computer programs that brokers use to buy up lots of tickets as soon as they go on sale. Our office has reached a number of settlements with brokers that were illegally reselling tickets in New York, but as we laid out in the report, it is a complex problem. There are a lot of different aspects to it. We do believe that more people in law enforcement are focused now on the problem of tickets. The criminalized ticket bot law can be enforced by the district attorneys. If you think you're the victim of that, you should report it to them. You can always file a complaint with our office on our website at ag.ny.gov, and as we receive complaints, we investigate them. But the report and all the other information is on our website, and I urge people, if you're having problems or something looks suspicious with the purchase of a ticket that you're trying to get for the concert season or for anything, go online, figure out what's going on. There are people selling speculative tickets. That means they haven't even bought them yet, which is sometimes results in fraud. There are folks who may, in fact, be violating the new law against the criminalization of bots. It's a complex process, but we do obviously take this seriously, which is why we put all the effort into issuing the report, move forward the bots legislation, and we continue to monitor the overall situation. None of these things is going to provide a magic solution to the problem of expensive tickets. There's not a law that says you can't resell tickets at higher prices, but we want to make sure that people at least have a fair shot to get tickets, and this is something that concerns the artists as well as the fans.
Have complaints gone down? Since the law went into effect, have complaints have gone down at all? Potential bot accounts, have complaints gone down?
Well, the law just went into effect very recently, so it's kind of early to say what's going to happen. We have not received. We haven't been receiving more complaints. We think part of what we accomplished last year was that we now have more informed consumers, and they're taking a more sophisticated approach to looking at this. But we encourage people to come forward with complaints. Sometimes something that may look suspicious to you but doesn't seem to be that big a deal may help us establish a pattern.
Paul McCartney is coming to the Carrier Dome in September. That's why there's heavy interest in Syracuse on this right now. What would you tell a consumer who on Monday can log in and look for tickets, pre-sale available now? What would you advise them to look for as something suspicious or something authentic?
Well, if you go online and the tickets have all vanished the first moment they go on sale, that might suggest the use of bots. That's something you might want to report to the district attorney in whatever county you're trying to purchase the tickets. They have primary jurisdiction over the criminal prosecution of that. You can also bring a complaint to our office. We do take an interest in the issue, even though we don't have primary jurisdiction. But there are tickets set aside by venues. There are pre-purchase arrangements made, all of which are legal. It's just a matter of scrutinizing those and making sure you understand them. If you are very interested in a particular concert, usually the venue will post what pre-sales are available and who they're available with, whether it's a special group of folks associated with the university or with a particular credit card. And if you find that out, you may be eligible for a pre-sale, which will give you an edge.